Hey gang, back at it. I'm in Libertyville, Illinois, a suburb just outside of Chicago, and I am at the Des Plaines River where a young boy of 15 years old stole his dad's car, and during a thunderstorm in the middle of the night came up to this bridge, stopped, and took all his parents' valuables out and threw them in the river here. And those valuables included his mom's purse, a jewelry box, and 11 guns, including the shotgun that he used to murder his parents. So let's go to the cemetery and I'll tell you the story. This is the Diamond Lake Cemetery, and it is here that the family is buried. And we are in. (1853). What was it like then? I'll tell you this much, none of this was here. None of it. And it's always the same at these older cemeteries. You find the high knob, the high ground on the hill, and that is where the oldest gravestones are. That is what the families would look for when they would bury their dead back in those days. I find it very interesting. It's the same as when I did the episode on the body snatchers in Sycamore. And you just have to imagine what it was like back in those days. And then the cemeteries, they expand from there. And as you get further and further out, you see the later and later graves. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at some graves. I'm not going to talk about them much. I'm going to give you a good look at a number of old tombstones as I tell you the story, the sad story of this family that seems to be forgotten. This was an old story from 1980. I never heard of it, and I live out in this area. Let's take a look. Their names were Darlene and Bruce Rouse. They were a very affluent family here living in this area of Libertyville because Bruce was a very good entrepreneur, and turned out that he owned a number of gas stations. That's how he really started making money. And he got into other businesses also. And they bought this big old mansion up the road. And they raised 3 kids there. Now there was Kurt, who was the oldest. And then there was Robin, girl. And then little William, they called him Billy. As they were growing up, of course, they were given all the accompaniments of a rich family. And I don't want to disrespect their memory, but they were flat out spoiled. And when that happens many times, kids start to get out of line. And the oldest boy, Kurt, he was a rock and roller. He was like a hippie. He just wanted to party. He was into the drugs. Going down the line, Robin, on the other hand, was an anomaly to this environment, and she became an honor roll student. She was in the private school. And I will tell you that she was Daddy's little girl, the favorite. And that might have been part of the issue with the boys because they felt neglected. That is a fact. And then the youngest, of course, which we hear many times, there's always, in that kind of environment, resentment from the youngest child. Well, not always, but many times. And that develops. It develops. Ended up getting kicked out of the house, and we lived in the coach house in the back. Now, they're a sprawling estate of, I believe, 7 acres. Had horses, ATVs, indoor swimming pool, and he lived in the cottage with a 200-foot extension cord, and he was not allowed in the house unless his parents were home. So that wasn't going so well. Billy, getting over to Billy, Billy was basically a bad boy since he was in grammar school, it is said. He was always in trouble, doing bad things. He's a bad boy. It was a conflict that caused this incident where it all culminated with the night. Well, it was really early in the morning of June 6th, between midnight and 3 a.m., they say. And there was one of these massive thunderstorms that we get here in the Chicago area, the Midwest. Boy, they're bad. And that previous day, he had come home and had an argument with Mom, with Darlene, and she basically, he said later, she basically said, you know, you're a loser, you're going to be like your older brother, you know what, we're going to kick you out, we're going to put you in a boarding school, military school, and you're worthless. Now, I'm sure it was exaggerated a little bit, but you can get the picture what the boy was going through. And I am not condoning anything he did, because what he did was he went in his bedroom. Now, his dad had a lot of guns laying around, and he got a hold of a 16-gauge shotgun, and he took that shotgun. And by the way, I'm trying not to step on graves. It's not always possible, but I believe, as I've said before, it's all in the intent of respect. Anyway, back to the story. So he's actually polishing the shotgun. And he's trying to decide, am I going to do this or am I not going to do this? And finally, he took some drugs. And that's usually what gets you over the edge into another dimension. And he said, I'm going to do it. And while they were sleeping, he went in the bedroom. And he really hated his mom. He hated her. And he took that shotgun, he put it right against her head and pulled the trigger. Blew her brains out all over the sheet. Now, Bruce shoots up, he's sitting up, he's got to be half out of it, wondering what is going on. Is this a nightmare? And before he can even get his wits, he receives a shotgun blast to the face from Billy. Billy later said it was a bad shot, so it just tore Dad's jaw right off. And Dad was flailing around. Can you imagine the sight in the dark? Poor guy. And Billy was like, I gotta kill him. He didn't really hate his dad. This is what's crazy. Can you imagine? He loved his dad, but he felt he had to kill him. It was all in the moment. And many times kids, I was like this as a teenager. My dad would always say, Ron, think what if? You know, before you go doing some of the stuff, like going into that Jonathan House, think of all the what ifs. And you know what? I learned over time, a lot of times, didn't always work. I would say what if, and then I wouldn't do it. Well, he didn't do the what ifs. So what does he do? He takes the rifle butt and he starts bashing his dad's head in. He's laying there in the bed. And that's not working. So he goes and he gets a kitchen, some big knife, and just starts stabbing his dad. 15 years old. 15 years old. Wow. I really find it hard to even imagine. Well, he killed both his parents. He was successful. And now the feeling of a little bit of remorse and panic was setting in. What do I do? What did he do? He jumped in the car, his dad's car, and he's like, I'm going to leave the state. And he starts driving up 294. And then he's like, and it's in the middle of the rainstorm after he dumped all those weapons and he had taken his mom's jewelry and he took her purse and he tried to stage it as a burglary. But he said, you know what, if I leave the state, like if I blow out of here, you know, even at 15 years old, he had the smarts enough to cover his tracks better. So he headed home and he went to bed. Now in the morning, Bruce always went to work at his gas station, his main gas station, at 5:30 a.m. on the dot. And he'd open the safe, get the cash registers ready. And it was just so out of the norm when one of his people came in at 6. He's not there. So the guy calls the house and he gets Billy. Billy answers the phone. He says, Billy, can I just stop by and get keys for the safe? I won't be any trouble. I'll just get in and out. And Billy goes, oh yeah, hold on a second. And about a minute later, you know, he puts the phone down and there's just screams in the background. Screaming. And the next thing you know, cops, 911. I'm guessing this is a veteran. And the cops are there, and the whole place is, you know, the whole deal is going crazy. The kids are sitting on the front lawn while the police are going and doing their investigation. And you know what Billy said when they went to talk to him? He said, does this mean I'm not going to be able to go to the graduation party tonight? Wow. So that was the first little tip-off that something was really, you know, amiss. Now the cops did their investigation and they really went in this direction of maybe it was a mob hit, because Bruce had got into investing in a lot of speculative but normal type of, well, they were risky future kind of investments, and they kind of thought maybe this was a mob hit. But they always thought in the back of their mind, they actually thought it was Kurt, because Kurt's, you know, is party animal, troublemaker. And, you know, who would believe that a 15-year-old would do this? Nobody. So they're really pressing, why did you do it, and all that kind of stuff. And what's interesting is Billy comes forward and he volunteers and he says, hey, I want to see the crime scene photos. I want to help. They're like, this is weird. Okay, let's roll with this. Let's go with it. And they get the kid in the interview room and they're showing it. And when they got to the pictures of mom and dad, the most gruesome pictures, they said he just stared at it. He got locked in. He couldn't look at the next picture, but it was almost like he was in awe, like it was fascinating. And then what did he say? He said, oh, and by the way, I can see in the picture, mom's purse is gone, and over there, the jewelry box is gone. And I mean, these guys are smart. They're not stupid. And it's like, who would say that? Who would notice that? I mean, maybe, but again, another tip-off. But they did not have enough evidence. They really, they couldn't do much. No one was talking. And then, they're going through all this stuff. And then, I think it was a month later, don't quote me on that, but a surveyor by the river where we saw literally stumbled over a garbage bag and garbage bags. And then next thing you know, the cops are there, and he found the wallet, Bruce's wallet, with his driver's license. So that broke it open. And they all, dredged the river, found the guns, found everything. But they still really couldn't prove anything. Robin was going to come forward with some information implicating Billy, and this is purely coincidental, but she was killed in a car wreck. So the case went cold, and the kids, what happened with the kids? Well, they each got 1/3 of $1 million life insurance policy, and they just go squandering away. Kurt went off somewhere to live his rock and roll life. I think he went west. He was California. And old Billy, he gets his money and he moves to Florida, to Key West, the cool area, and he's doing drugs and he's just blowing through his money. He did get married. I think he did have a child. But the next thing you know, he's shoplifting, he's out of money, he's doing petty theft, getting caught. And then he's like, I need to do a bank robbery. So he does a bank robbery, gets caught. And that brought the Chicago detectives down from up here. So that's when things started breaking open, because psychologically, he was at the low point of his life. He's like, I'm a piece of crap. And then in jail, they put him in jail, so he dried out. He couldn't get his drugs. And that's when he confessed. Now here is the Rouse family plot. Very easy to find here. But what you're not going to find here you're not going to find Darlene, you're not going to find Bruce, you're not going to find Robin. But I did find them. They're all together. You can see these are all, look at this, 1790. We're in the day of the pirates. Right? This is, gosh, 1790. What was it like here? Now we've got more Rouses. These are all the ancestors of the Rouse family. There's John. Here's Fanny. You can see the dates are getting later. Oh, here's a sad one. Wayne Rouse, 1893, aged 15 days. Well, we all know what probably happened there. Take your pick: yellow fever, cholera, all of those things. So the Rouse family plot presumably is full, so we come over here to find the rest of the family of late. And that's common. And it's good that they're fairly close and not too far away. Here is a Libby. I don't know if that is the wife of G. Hardin Rouse, I'm guessing, who died in 91. And here is the grave of Darlene and Bruce. Darlene, 1941, she was born. Of course, died that night in 1980. Bruce was born in 1936. And right next to them is Robin, beloved daughter and niece, Robin Lynn Rouse. 1963, wow, she was younger than I am, to 1983. So it was 3 years later that she was killed in that car wreck. So it all kind of adds up. So Billy confessed, and to make a long story short, he told the story of what happened and how he did it. And they went to trial, and of course the defense attorneys went to work, as they should, and tried to get the false confession and all that. But the bottom line was he got 2 consecutive 40-year life terms. And that is how this story ends. There is no trace of the house. And this family, I don't know where. We hope that Kurt is doing well somewhere out west. He's probably, but Kurt is the last man standing, because of course Billy is in prison and he's not going to see the light of day before. I'm not sure when he's eligible, but he'll probably die in prison. He may not, but I don't think they're going to let him out on any parole. So to the Rouse family, you are not forgotten. I hope to tell your story keeps your memory alive. I'm sure your relatives still remember you, but otherwise, mostly forgotten. Rest in peace, Rouse family.